And good afternoon. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Chuck Morse here at the Morse Force, Monday through Friday, around 12 noon every day. Hopefully, but being the internet, you do it when you can do it, right? Peter Murphy is my guest today. We're talking about the USA Workforce Tax Credit. This is an education credit for helping our public school students, assumedly, develop or transfer into more efficiently into the workforce. Peter, thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Chuck, it's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Give us a little background on the USA Workforce Tax Credit.
So this is legislation that was introduced about almost a year ago by Congressman Lloyd Smucker of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
It's HR 5153. It's called the USA Workforce Tax Credit Act. It has over 40 co-sponsors. And we're looking to see some action, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks before Congress formally ends its session at the end of December. And what the bill would do, basically, is provide K-12 scholarship opportunities to improve the graduation and quality of our students so they're better prepared for college and career. It would add apprenticeship opportunities substantially, so that more young people can get prepared for jobs that are very much in demand right now. And finally, it would encourage the private companies and investors to create collaboration and partnerships with workforce development agencies, with community college programs, all designed to get workers the skills they need for the jobs that are in demand not tomorrow, but today. We have 7 million jobs unfilled in this country. Half a million of them are manufacturing jobs, 250,000 in construction, on and on. You have the skills gap that really needs addressing. And this legislation would go a long way to closing that skills gap we have.
So then the tax credit is primarily targeted toward community college. Is it also a high school level thing? Is it a public school, private school? Who would qualify for as a student? Well, let's put aside the recipient of the credit, but who are the students that are going to be targeted for the credit?
Well, these are high school and college students, but it doesn't have to be. It's not age limited, but the tax credit itself would go to the investor, to the contributor, or to the company that invests, that puts up the money opportunity. A lot of young skills who are late teens, early 20s, who can have greater access and opportunity to fill the jobs that are going begging right now.
Oh, it's an extraordinary idea, and it's one that you would conventionally think would get bipartisan support. What it means is that a businessman, an investor, a taxpayer, quite frankly, is able to take a tax credit, which is not a tax deduction. A tax credit comes right off the top of your income, so it's pre-tax. It's before you fill out your regular deductions.
Actually, Chuck, tax credit's even better than that. It actually comes off of what you owe. It comes off of your tax bill. After you figure out what you owe, the tax credit actually lowers that amount to what you pay the feds, because that money is instead going into the desired outcome. It's going into the workforce development agency. It's going into the community college. It's going into the programming that's going to train those people to get the skills they need to fill the jobs. So it's a very strong incentive, which is what we want. We need companies, we need individuals to step up and invest in this area because there is such a demand nationally.
So then the company actually gets it. First, they get a tax break. Secondly, they get to invest in a potential employee by having the money targeted specifically for a specific endeavor, whether it be at a community college or whatnot. And then the money itself then goes to the institution where it helps to train the teachers. It helps fund the necessary equipment and the educational costs associated with training someone in a particular area. Right. Now, that includes apprenticeships, as you say, which tells me that this goes toward training people to get into the trades as well as more academic things.
Absolutely. The trades in particular are in enormous need of skilled labor. The average age for a lot of these trades is 50s. I mean, these people are going to be retiring soon. These jobs are opening up every day, and there's an enormous demand. And these are middle class jobs. These are lucrative positions. I mean, consider this contrast. We can and need to create more skilled Americans to fill these jobs. You can have a 20-year-old person filling a job in a particular trade, for example, while his 20-year-old classmate from high school a couple, 3 years ago is incurring six-figure debt in college that may or may not prepare that person for a job out of college. And so the contrast and the opportunity is really enormous in our country right now. And I think this bill will help steer more people to opportunities that exist now that are certain, that are very tangible and very.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess that my other question is, would some of the would a qualifier for the tax credit be some of the certificate programs that are now being offered by many colleges? Right here in my own hometown of Boston, for example, Northeastern is switching over to a large offering of certificate programs in various trades that help someone earn more in their job. If someone wants to get into the field, for example, of software engineering or coding or other forms of work which they may not have anticipated, they can get a certificate. Can the tax credit go toward helping develop that system?
That sounds exactly the purpose of this kind of thing, because a lot of these programs exist, but the supply is not keeping up with the demand. This is about accelerating and getting more people into these areas of need in our economy, in our job market right now. I guess it's sort of a nice problem to
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
have. It's better than having and expand those kinds of programs.
No, for sure. I mean, this is good news, and of course, the idea of offering a tax credit for education has been around back in the 1970s, I believe, or 60s even. Senator Abraham Ribicoff of Connecticut offered a bill that would have created tax credits for inner city kids to go to private schools, and it was shot down by the the educrat establishment, I guess you'd call it, the NEA and the unions. Where do you stand now in terms of getting this done? Because it seems to me that maybe enough people are woken up, they're woke, as it were, both Democrat and Republican, because we all have children in schools. We all are trying to advance our careers. We all want to get into different fields. So in this day and age, do we stand a chance of getting beyond these entrenched, public union interests? And even they aren't hurt by it, but putting that aside, where are we politically in terms of getting it done?
Well, politically, there remain challenges. I mean, we're certainly trying to make a push by year's end while this Congress is still there. But what we've seen in the last 3-4 decades is that school choice, which is what you're zeroing in on here, has been really, really effective. I mean, school choice programs exist in almost every state to some degree or another. They've been very effective. They've proven themselves. The states have been these laboratories of democracy, if you will. And that was not known or the case in the 70s. It wasn't as widespread, nearly as widespread back then. And so we know this works. The teacher unions know it works. Their opposition remains very powerful, very strong, but it's been overcome in many places. But it's still a very piecemeal, sort of tangential impact on society. And what we've tried to do is bring that success of the different states to a national effort, because a lot of children in states that don't have this don't benefit. So look, public education is essential. It's vital. It's important. Teacher unions are acting in what they see as their own interest. But I think we need to put children first, get them in the best setting they can, and frankly, have a very progressive way of equalizing outcomes for young people, because the wealthy have children in great schools, typically. Low-income families, not so much in many cases. The school choice program, whether it's scholarship tax credits, whether it's other means, can equalize those opportunities so rich and poor alike can go to great schools. And none of this, by the way, keeps public schools, keeps teachers from improving public schools for the vast majority of children who will and continue to go there.
Well, here in Massachusetts, even, and I view this, I've always thought of this as, and it is more of a state issue and even a local issue. We've actually overcome some of these entrenched powers with the charter school movement, which has been a big success in this state. In fact, we have a governor who just authorized in the past couple of years more charter schools against fierce opposition. And more and more people are taking advantage of these new systems. Homeschooling has been able to survive. Other alternative schooling methodologies have been able to survive. I'd like to see more emphasis put, and this is something that President Trump talked about even in his inaugural address, the idea of putting more emphasis on vocational education, on, as you say, apprenticeship education, to bring people into trades where they can make a very good living and which perhaps more applicable to their level of learning or interest, as opposed to everybody going through some cookie cutter college and coming out with a degree in art history.
Okay. Well, school choice provides variety. It provides flexibility. Charter schools have, by and large, been very successful, but the political opposition does not come about because they don't work. The political opposition to school choice comes about because it does work so well in almost every place it's tried. So that's just a challenge that's going to continue. But our job is to create as many opportunities, as many options for people as possible, because ultimately we need a more educated, more skilled workforce, or we're going to lose these jobs to other countries. Our economy is going to suffer. So we've got to get ahead of that and sustain the growth that we've been able to get. And frankly, President Trump, regarding the school choice issue, this is an unfulfilled promise. He's this is in his first 2 years. The economy's going well, but school choice has remained thus far elusive for him. So these next few weeks are going to be quite important, I think, for him and his administration to fulfill a very real promise he made to a lot of corners of this country, particularly urban areas where he reached out and made a strong pitch to Latino and African-American families, immigrant families. They're the ones that stand the most to gain here. And again, it's a very kind of non-ideological approach to helping people in the long term. You get a better education, you put a child on a better track for lifetime success. And we lose a lot of kids to prison, to dropout. And this is one way to really change that for the better. And we know that because we've seen that time and time again throughout the country in the last 30 years, as school choice has expanded and flourished in many states in the country.
Well, Peter, what you're talking about, of course, is a no-brainer. It's obviously a good thing for it runs completely consistent with our system of freedom, the idea of free choice. And yet, like a lot of things, we have this weird twisting of people's priorities and, away from what should be a basic common sense idea. Now, you are the vice president of the Invest in Education Coalition, which is spearheading this national effort to improve education through the USA Workforce Tax Credit Act. And I certainly applaud your efforts. I mean, I've seen this mostly done piecemeal on a state level, but you're trying to do it nationally through Congress, and you want to get it done before the end of the year. Well, in this lame duck session of Congress, what's going on in terms of the the facts on the ground, so to speak? Is Congress going to where are they with this, and what are the odds that they're going to get it done?
It's hard to predict Congress even weeks in advance, let alone a year in advance. We've spent a lot of time making the case, member by member. A lot they do need to get done by the end of the year. So we're sort of, us and many others are piggybacking on that reality. They have to pass a debt ceiling increase. There's a number of tax extenders they're going to be doing. So a lot of activity is going to be happening. The question is this something that's going to make its way in? Is this something that's going to fit in? There's a lot of support for this, both among members, but also over 300 organizations have formed a coalition, the USA Workforce Coalition, to back this kind of legislation. So remains to be seen. We'll know, obviously, in a few weeks. But I appreciate the opportunity to tell your listeners and viewers about it. Appreciate your interest in it, and we'll keep making the push.
And Peter, because just to wrap things up here, what can my listeners do? Should they call their congressmen? Should they call their senators? What are you suggesting? And where can people reach you and your organization?
Well, they can go on usaworkforce.org. usaworkforce.org is the website for the legislation, HR 5153. They can certainly call their member of Congress, call their senator. Don't make presumptions about them. Don't assume that they're of a certain viewpoint or belief, because ultimately they do respond to constituents. That's the most important thing for them. They have to be responsive to them. So it's important that they hear about that, because that's how things come about still.
Oh, absolutely. A phone call to a congressman is huge. All right, Peter Murphy, Vice President at the Invest in Education Coalition. You're promoting the USA Workforce Tax Credit Act. Peter, I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Chuck, thanks so much for having me. Great to be on with you.
Okay, my pleasure. Have a good day. Thank you. Okay.